Hi, my name is Laura. I work in the Nutrition Education Department at Foodlink, where we talk within the community about nutrition and healthy cooking. And today we're going to focus on a big pantry staple, beans.
Beans are a great pantry staple because they come in all different shapes and sizes. You can use your favorites in any recipe, really. Lentils are a little different, and we'll do a different video on those later.
So today we really want to focus on the two types of beans that are available to you at the grocery store. So typically you'll see beans either dried in a bag just like this, and usually it comes in a 1 pound quantity, or you will see beans canned. And this is the typical average size of 15.5 ounce can. Or you can purchase these larger sizes. This is a 29 ounce can. The biggest difference between the two is obviously that the canned beans are cooked. So you're cutting out all the time that's necessary to cook your dry beans. However, the dry beans are always less expensive. So always weigh your options when you're in the grocery store to see if I have a little extra time, maybe I can afford then to purchase the dry beans. So quantities are usually a question too. A bag like this, 1 pound bag, is approximately 2 cups of dry beans. If I were to cook this entire bag of dried, it would yield me about 6 cups of cooked beans. So something to consider when you're making recipes. If it only calls for, 2 cups or 3 cups of cooked beans, you'd only have to soak a cup of the dry. Something to think about. These smaller cans contain about 1.5 cups of cooked beans. So it's good to know when you're considering which beans to use for what recipe. So making beans from dry beans is not difficult at all. It doesn't require any skills or talents. It just requires some time. But the benefits of using dry beans, some people who have difficulty digesting beans find that cooking them from dry actually help them digest them easier. Canned beans typically are packed in some briny solution, so there's sodium involved that you might not necessarily want or need in your diet. So I'm going to show you how simple it is. So I'm going to actually soak all of these beans and then store them for later. And I'm going to talk about that, how I'm going to do that in a minute. All right, so the first step with dry beans is actually just going through them and making sure there's no extra debris. I have found some pebbles in my dry beans before, and that's because most beans are left to dry out in the field, and then they're harvested, and it's not uncommon to find some unwanted things in your dry beans. So just take a minute or two to go through them. I like to just pull out any of the beans that look very excessively dry or cracked. Some of these are even just half beans. So just doing some quality control to begin with. So once we have gone through them, for soaking purposes, it'll take about 6 hours to soak. Some people like to soak them overnight because they find that's easier. I like to kind of soak them during the day while I'm at work, and that way when I get home I can just put the pot on the stove. They take 1 to 2 hours to cook. So this is a great weekend project, or maybe a day that you don't have to work, and you have a couple hours that you can just leave these on the stove and go about other tasks and just kind of check on them. Once I've poured the water in, and you want to put about the same amount of water, the height of the water, as the height of the beans, because they're almost going to double in size, and you don't want some of them to be exposed and not get the benefit of soaking. So once you do that, sometimes you do have a couple pieces that you have to clear out that float to the top. The rest of those look good though.
And now we'll just soak the beans for about 6 hours or so. So once the beans have been soaking, we're ready to cook. So I added some onion and garlic and bay leaf and simmered for about 45 minutes, and they got nice and tender and ready to eat.
All right, everybody, our beans are cooked and ready to use. This batch actually only took about 40 minutes to get tender. In the last 5 minutes or so, I added a big sprinkle of salt and some pepper, and that added some flavor. So now I'm just going to put them in some Ziploc bags and put them in the fridge, and they'll be good for about 5 days in the fridge, or I could put them in the freezer for a few months. Thanks for joining us.